Welcome to Soul Journey episode 12. I have the pleasure today to be back. This is the second last episode, the penultimate episode of Soul Journey series season 2 with my guest today is going to be Stefanie Rico. Hi, Stefanie. Let's see if I can invite her. Oh, let me see this way.
Let's hopefully it works. Hey, Nancy. Hello, I can hear you.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Can you hear and see me now?
I can hear you. I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see if we can figure this out.
Yeah, I'm not too worried. This has been happening most of the season. So.
Mercury retrograde much?
Yeah, it worked for 2 interviews out of the 13 that I have planned. So I had planned. So I'm just gonna go roll with the punches. I'm just gonna let it be. Before we start, Stephanie, I wanted to quickly introduce you so people know who you are. So this is Stefanie Rico, my guest. She's a registered social worker, a psychotherapist, yoga instructor, and creative. And I've had the pleasure to meet Stefanie through the GTA Reiki community. And we've worked together before, and she just has such a warm heart, and she's so passionate and so authentically real that I'm like, I have to have her in Soul Journey. I haven't had a psychotherapist on this season, so you're my psychotherapist. So
honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Absolutely. And right back at you. You're so warm, and I think our first interaction was during my Reiki 1 training, and we got paired together, and I just remember just being with you was like this wash of compassion, and that's what I like viscerally remember. So thank you as always.
Yes, and my ability of making people feel safe enough to cry in my arms happened as well. I've done that to a lot of clients this week, so let's just say
so warm embrace.
Have a talent for it. So let's get to it, because I know you, I want to respect your timeline. So here in the Soul Journey series, I bring in healers and psychotherapists and other people who work in different modalities in the mental health and body healing aspect. And I just kind of want to hear about your soul journey, kind of how your career came about, how your healing journey's going. Everybody has their own stories, but I have kind of I have questions that I'm going to ask you. So let's start with the first question, and which is, what would you like to share about your life journey so far that has led you to become a healer, a psychotherapist, a social worker, yoga instructor?
Yeah, I really love your questions. It's allowed me to really reflect on the journey so far, because sometimes you don't take the time, right, to see how far you've come, as well as to, what's that phrase? You can only connect the dots looking back. And one of actually my favorite song lyrics is Bob Cajun. The song Bob Cajun by the Tragically Hip. And the lyric goes, the constellations reveal themselves one star at a time.
Wow.
And, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Good.
Yeah. And that's how I feel about my journey. And I think most folks would say the same, that I didn't know I was going to be a psychotherapist. I didn't know I was going to be a yoga teacher. But looking back, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, there's so many stories and mentors and, support that I received that I can share. But maybe I'll just focus on 2. One is my journey to becoming a therapist. I was always interested in human stories, human beings. I was the kid that took out every Chicken Soup for the Soul books. I don't know if you're familiar with those series.
Yes, I am.
And just interested in, what makes us unique. Nature versus nurture, our temperament. I was always very introverted. Why am I like this when I see other people in my family quite extroverted and so easily able to express themselves? I was also very interested in not only what makes us unique, but what brings us together, common humanity, how we can work together towards social change and equity. So all that to say, I didn't have um, the awareness that mental health could even be a career trajectory for me. No one in my family was in the field. I didn't have access to mental health services growing up, though I could have definitely benefited from it. And in fact, going into first year university, I thought I wanted to be a journalist. But then I realized that it wasn't in reporting stories that I was most interested in. It was more connecting with human stories, not reporting on it. So once I figured that out and started kind of exploring different courses and putting kind of my natural skills but also interests together, always have, volunteered for nonprofit organizations in the community, such as like the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club, and have always found a lot of joy in providing a service that was for the mental, emotional, and physical development of folks, and particularly passionate in bringing it in a way that it was accessible to communities that were underserved. So that's
You've been helping in the community from since very young, right?
yeah. I found a lot of meaning and purpose in volunteerism. I think that's where it started. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next
And
question. Oh, sorry.
oh no, that's okay.
So
And there's just one story that I want to share
yeah,
about
please.
becoming a yoga teacher. So as well, I didn't know the word yoga growing up. It was my friend in university. I was about 19 and she invited me to a yoga class. And I'm like, sure, this is kind of like a social thing. Let's try it out. I have no idea what I'm getting into. And I enjoyed the first class, but once I started going more, I think I started to also really embody it and not just, follow the instructor um, mm, and do it in a very kind of hierarchical way. I always have trouble saying that word. That kind of mimics the school system where it's like teacher, student. You do what I say and you follow. It wasn't until I had an instructor that prompted the class. They said, now we're going to move the way that your body wants to move. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. Because even though I've been involved in extracurricular, like piano and swimming and dance, it was always follow these instructions and perfect it. And that's how you get good at something. That's when you know you're doing it right. So that kind of was a real mind shift for me. And at the time, the teacher could tell I was confused, so they gently prompted the class to find inspiration with the other students around them. So I kind of like looked over to my right and kind of copied what they did until I could really find my own flow. But it's been certainly a practice in coming back into my body, allowing myself to express in a way that feels good and not just do what someone else tells me is right.
Right.
So
Really,
that's my story.
I really deeply listen within, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Now the next question, you kind of answered it, but I think you could maybe add a few more details here. The next question is, how have you discovered your life purpose? And if you did, how did that occur? I know you've discovered certain purposes, but I don't know if you've discovered your life purpose.
Yeah. I feel like life purpose is always evolving. And yeah, I think for me right now, it is continuing to build community. I think that's at the heart of everything I do. And I think in the future, it could certainly manifest in different ways, but building community, reminding people that they're not alone, creating safer spaces is really what I'm passionate about and feel like it's my purpose, because not only do I feel like it is supporting others, but I find a lot of joy in it. Yeah. And it's taken me some time to recognize that those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive, that you can
Right?
also
Yeah.
receive, and be nourished by your work, which is like so wonderful to figure that out.
Yeah. I think you hit a strong point there. Is sometimes as healers or even providers of service, of mental health service, we think that it's always give, 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 give. But it should be kind of give and take, right? You get the rewards of seeing people thrive and grow and heal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, to have that sense of purpose, really, I guess, yeah, it supports not only yourself, but also, is felt also by everyone that you have the opportunity to be in space with.
Definitely, right? Because what inspires you inspires the people around you, right?
That's
All
right.
right. So question number 3 is, what are some of the challenges you faced during your healing journey? I mean, we know that healing is a continuous road, but what some of the healing that you've done until now?
Mm, it's one of those, where do I begin? uh, I think, if I were to land on perhaps a pattern or a theme, it would
Yeah.
be doubting myself.
Mm.
It would be doubting myself. It would be doubting my intuition, outsourcing that knowledge, not trusting myself. And I think we can look to so many things that contribute to why I may have done that. I think living within systems of oppression, recognizing the impact of that can also support individuals with self-compassion that also feel this, whether it's like imposter syndrome, or why can't I be as confident as the next person? It's because we live within systems that tell us we're not, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest challenge is really getting to know my voice outside of the noise.
Yeah. That's
Work in
very,
progress.
yeah. So what would you say to some of your clients or even just friends? Like what is one of the lessons you have learned and share with people all the time, right?
Feelings are for us. I think we get really scared of our feelings, especially the big, scary ones. Perhaps like anger and sadness. Sometimes it feels like if we let it in, it's going to take over completely. And one of the reasons maybe because perhaps that was modeled to us growing up, that anger was really big and not contained and not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps because we haven't had a space to be sad and grieve, so it feels really overwhelming to allow ourselves to do that. So feelings are for us, and they're here to tell us more about what's on our heart, what we need, and also that they're not always true, in that, you can, for example, just thinking of, you can be like so enamored with someone, right? Or maybe there's a job opportunity that comes and you're like really excited and you want to like act on it right away. Coming into stillness and really anchoring in our values, like values work, I think is central to my work, because those are like these steady things that hold us within our inner truths, and knowing that this is meaningful to me. It reminds us of our limits as well, because our feelings are like the weather, they change and fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't need to take them as absolute truth, but anchoring into our values to remind us of what remains steady, no matter the weather, I think can be a good place to find grounding.
Yeah, and that's key. You're right, because feelings, we can trust our feelings, but sometimes feelings are also transitory. They're supposed to be kind of flowing in and out. And sometimes feelings get stuck and we're viewing something from a lens of a specific feeling when it really, we should just take that lens off and kind of look at it the way it actually is, right?
Yes, yeah, you can be very like reactive towards the feeling in the moment. So just kind of let it sit a little bit, notice the urgency to respond to it right away, and then remember, your values.
Yeah. Become friends with your feelings for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. So the next one's a doozy, and I love asking this question because I love it how everybody has a different answer for it. So the question is, what does healing mean to you?
What does healing mean to me? I think, did I write something down for this? Yes, I did, because this was also a doozy. I'm like, I need to meditate on this. I wrote down healing means coming back home to ourselves. Coming back home to ourselves. Yeah. To expand on that, what does it mean to create a safe space within our bodies, right? We need a steady foundation, of home to flourish, and allowing ourselves the time to get to know that, to get to know what we need, to take time to build that foundation, especially if perhaps we didn't grow up in environments that nourish that, is certainly a big part of the journey.
Definitely. Yeah, Nancy says she resonates with that, coming back home. Yeah. Home to yourself, right? To your own kind of soul's light.
Absolutely. Soul's light, yes. And I think the famous Ram Dass quote, "We're all just walking each other home."
Oh, I love that.
Favorites.
Oh, I love that. I just got goosebumps again. Good quote. So the following question to that is, what do you love most about your talents and your gifts and the work that you do?
So much, so much. I feel like butterflies in my stomach thinking about it. It feels like a spiritual practice. Sometimes I feel like there's I'm a channel and it flows through me. Sometimes things, come out of my mouth, and like say I'm like teaching yoga. I'm like, I don't know how that just happened, but it worked well. However, other times it doesn't flow as easily, and I think that's okay as well, because at the end of the day, I know that I'm doing work that is deeply meaningful, that I have put a lot of, training and work into to become competent in my craft. So what I love most about it is it allows me to find that common humanity and kind of coming back to community, at the end of a client session, whether it's therapy or a yoga class, and at the very end, someone sharing that I feel lighter. Sometimes simply just by having the space to kind of offload things that they've been holding, I think that's an incredible honor to be able to be part of someone's journey, and I just feel lucky to be able to hold that space.
Amazing. Yeah. Yes, I know exactly how you feel. So our following question is, what projects are you working on right now?
Yeah. So I have like a personal project and a professional project. So a bit of a personal share. My personal project is that I'm subscribing from self-optimization. So being in the wellness space, I think it's very easy to get caught up in this, you know, capitalism driven need to, whether we call it be healed or
Mm.
to have the perfect morning routine, or, you know, and I think, you know, I like to say that I've practiced some, you know, mindful awareness in being intentional with how I spend my time. But if I am being really honest with myself, there are still some kind of beliefs and assumptions about what it means to be, whether it is, the word isn't healed, but a well-rounded, you know, individual, a balanced, you know, individual,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I am unsubscribing, and what that means is sometimes literally unsubscribing from too much information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, because it can be overwhelming. You can fall into that rabbit hole of, I need to fix this. I need to do better. And then you just kind of keep looking at what's missing and what needs to be healed instead of going, I'm fine. Right now in this moment, I'm great. Yes,
yes.
there's things I need to work on. But right now, if I just sit, I have a shelter over my head. I have food in my belly. I am at peace with myself. I'm okay, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this is enough. I am enough right now.
Yeah,
Yes. So
definitely.
certainly, and that also translates to my professional work as well. Like whether it's yoga and, you know, creating an environment for folks to remind them, like, yes, you can wear whatever you want, that you feel, you know, free to move in. You don't have to like look a certain way. Mindfulness doesn't have to be, you know, closing your eyes for half an hour. We know that can be very unsettling and overwhelming for certain folks, right? So bringing like
Mm-hmm.
trauma-informed practice to yoga, as well as therapy, of course. A big professional project for me is starting my own independent practice. So I'm really excited for that. I have a waitlist open for May, and continuing to work with adult clients, providing video, you know, remote therapy, supporting folks experiencing life transition, anxiety, depression, self-identity, navigating kind of hyphenated identities as well.
Mm-hmm.
So really excited to kind of take that next step, and of course a deep reverence and also curiosity in how to continue to integrate ancestral practices, right? So whether that means incorporating more somatic work, Reiki healing, I'm deeply interested. I'm okay with going down that rabbit hole.
Good.
Going back to my roots, you know, as a second generation Filipino Canadian, learning more about ancestral practices has been deeply healing for me as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, and I find that when we do that, we're kind of bringing our ancestors with us. We're bringing that knowledge that lives in our blood, just flows out right?
You're right. I can like feel it in my bones. Yes.
Yeah. So, I know you spoke a little bit of your services, but what are some of the specific services that you do, and why do you provide those services?
Yeah. So I provide individual psychotherapy, and why I provide it is, you know, I think people come to therapy for a variety of different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but I always land on it's coming to the acceptance that we don't have to do this alone, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm there to be the collaborator. Sometimes I'm in the driver's seat, kind of, you know, um, providing the structure and the, you know, guiding reflections for our conversations, but also I take a backseat sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of talked about how can you listen to your own voice and your own inner knowing. That's part of my role too, to give folks the space to feel into their feelings, to listen, you know, to their own wisdom. There's a lot of things that we know that we don't give ourselves credit for if we only just gave ourselves the chance.
Yeah. And I feel too that if we give ourselves enough space, or even just someone as a sounding board, we can solve like 99% of our own problems, right? But it's just always so stuck here in our heads or in our hearts that I think that's why your profession is so necessary, especially nowadays, because people need that sounding board. People need those to be guided sometimes into the tools that can help them, make sense of their thoughts, make sense of their emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And one final question, Stephanie,
Mhm.
is where can people find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can find me at stefanierico.com, same as my IG handle. That's also my email as well. And through my website, you can see any offerings I might do in addition to teaching in high schools as part of like a nonprofit organization. I also have done some work in hosting employee resilience programs, other mindfulness workshops. So I update all my latest offerings on my website as well.
Amazing. Amazing. So I'm going to throw this out to the audience, the people watching us. Do you have any questions for Stephanie? And while we're waiting to see if anybody else got any questions, any last words, Stephanie? Anything else you would like to share with us about your journey, your experiences, even just kind of what you wish to kind of leave out, legacy or leave out into the world, right?
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Maria. I think, you know, I'll be really honest. It took me some time to even be public
Mm-hmm.
about really practicing alternative therapies such as Reiki, sound healing. And it took other psychotherapists who were also public and vocal about it to give me the courage. I can go on and on about this topic, about the hierarchy of knowledge and what
Mm-hmm.
is, what is seen as, how can we say, um, evidence-based, research-backed and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Again, coming back to the ancestral wisdom. So what I want to leave with is that for folks on the healing journey to maybe follow your intuition. If it feels like, that sounds really interesting to me, that feels good in my body, to follow it, but also ask questions. Before I booked my first session with my first Reiki practitioner, I asked a whole bunch of questions. Same thing that I would do in meeting with a therapist for a consultation, because I'm a bit of a skeptic as well, and I'm very research driven. So ask the questions. How do you hold safe space? What is your view on blank? And also just getting a feel for their relational style. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because you also certainly have your own agency in your healing journey.
Definitely. And I usually find that the biggest skeptics are those people that are gifted and psychics. Because it's like, we've known things. We know things, we feel things, so you got to show me that you feel it too, because otherwise, it's that. And I understand those questions, because as humans, we want a finality, like a kind of like black or white, kind of, this is the answer, and it really isn't. Like, there's so many shades of gray, right? There's so many things out there that can resonate with somebody, but they don't resonate for somebody else. And at the end of the day, it's about that individual experience, right? Because everybody's experience is right. So we're having like 8 billion people who have their own point of view, and they're all right. There's none of them is wrong. It's just that's their reality, right?
Yes, and that's, one of the things that I so appreciate about your approach to working with you in Reiki. Like you ask like such wonderful, like thought-provoking, but also open-ended questions. I've never felt you've told me this is exactly what's going to happen to you, or this is what this means. It's always like an invitation. So I really
Mm-hmm.
love that.
Yeah, to dig deep and really just ask
Hmm.
yourself, right? It says, uh, Nicole says that was the question I was going to ask. How have you walked with non-evidence-based and evidence-based modalities?
Mm.
Okay. Well,
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, happy to answer. I'm not sure what walked with. I'm assuming that means how have I maybe practiced or like come to terms with? Is that how you understand that,
yeah, I
Nicole?
would
Yeah.
interpret that she wants to know, like, how do you, I wouldn't even say how do you mesh those two, like the evidence-based and the non-evidence-based, right?
Yes.
Because there's still a belief there. There's still evidence for you, but maybe not evidence for everybody else, right?
Yes, yes. Such a good question. I think in my so in okay, I'll share. Um, my involvement in Reiki, for example, is a personal practice. And the evidence that I have is what I feel in my body, to be quite honest with you. What drew me to Reiki was that I felt the stagnant energy, the stuckness, and nothing, all the tools that I knew weren't addressing it. And I just felt
Mm-hmm.
intuitively called to energy work. And through asking questions that provided me reassurance that this was kind of a safe practice and that I would be taken care of, I began to trust in the practitioner. And then through the experience of receiving Reiki, I started to trust in the modality as well. Now, I am not, at Maria's master level, right? And because of that, I am not providing Reiki to my therapy clients, for example, right? Like, so I, I think it's being very, as part of like being a healer, a service provider to be very, what's the
Transparent,
words? Pardon me?
transparent.
Transparent, yeah, transparent in your scope of practice. Thank you. Yeah, like that's it. So I think further in my training as I begin to study, and I do know other psychotherapists that integrate it as part of their work in addition to things like cranial sacral therapy, have integrated it into their work. But at this point, things like Reiki and sound healing is more of like my own personal practice, and the evidence is like what I feel in my body. And then once I receive the training and skills to provide that to other folks, then I'm considering that as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Maria, I don't know if like your journey to become a master and to have this as your um, practice, if there's evidence or research or like what have you leaned on when folks have asked that question?
I think it's my own personal experience. And like you, I came to Reiki because I felt like I had done the living a toxic relationship, I was doing therapy, I was trying to do the healing, but there was this other part of me that I was like, there's something else and I just can't put my finger on it. So I turned to Reiki because a friend of a friend was teaching and I was like, okay, fine, sure. And I did it for me, and just the way Reiki just cracks you open. And each time I do another Reiki level or do another training, it just expands me even more and more and more. And I was talking to a client yesterday. It's like has taken me what six years for me to get here. So I wasn't like I was at your level of expertise, 6 years ago. So it's about just applying yourself and practice, practice, practice. And the more you do, the more you come across experiences that you're like, I can't deny that. Like I'm feeling it, they're feeling it, I'm seeing it, they're seeing it. They're like, right? It's so, and it's, and I think that's what the practice is not only seeing new things, but also getting the confirmation that those things are also being viewed and felt by somebody else, right?
Yeah, I think those are the words that I would choose as well, like something like undeniable,
Yeah.
and the confirmation, because yeah, often there have been things that you've said in Reiki session and like I never told you that, I haven't told anyone that.
Okay.
And it comes through when we're debriefing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just can't deny that there's something there
Right. Like,
beyond that.
exactly. How can a stranger that I don't know tap into some deep-seated fears or even anger or even just the way something unfolded? Yeah, no, I have that evidence all the time with clients, right?
Yeah.
And some of them don't tell me, but I hear it later. It's like, yeah, you knew about this and this. I'm like, I figured. I know I didn't hear back, but I figured, like, I can tell when I've tapped into something that sometimes they just need to see it. Like, it's there, but they just need to see it, and for it to be seen by somebody else, and then for them to go, oh yeah, I guess it's all right. Oh, no big deal, right? So yeah, no, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and kind of going back to like honoring clients' agencies, right? Like everyone has different ways of knowing. So if a client were to bring up their own spiritual practice that I know nothing about, I honor that that's what makes sense for them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely, and that's the reason why I have all these different experts and different modalities. I interview people with different modalities because there is such a there's so much out there, and there's so much different ways that people can get supported throughout their awakening journey, through their mental health journey, through their healing journey in general, that I want to say, hey, psychotherapy is awesome. It's wonderful. Please, if you need kind of to learn new ways how to think and rearrange some of your patterns and thoughts, and like, there is really beautiful structure, proven structure of things working. But sometimes there's things that we can't kind of put our finger on, that we need healing on, that they're so much bigger than just the mind or just feeling, right? So that's where you kind of step out of those kind of modalities that are common known, and you go into Reiki, into sound healing, right? Even yoga is thousands and thousands of years old, and that was created to align the chakras, right? And people do it now not knowing the benefits of it, right? The true benefits of it.
100%.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, sometimes it takes time for like science to catch up to these,
definitely.
ancient
Yeah,
practices,
and
right? Like sound healing, there's evidence,
oh
absolutely. The
yeah, so much.
frequencies and what they do to our nervous system, there is, but it's been practiced for thousands of years.
Yeah. And not only that, but like, if you look at the cymatic waves of sound and water, right, and then you kind of cut it in half, then you can see it in the, like, cathedrals and stuff thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. Like, they spliced kind of this sound mandala bubble, and they put it into buildings. Like, it's just amazing how just things correlate, right? But you're right. Sometimes it takes science to catch up with um the other, right? And I keep saying this, that once science meets spirituality, that's when we're going to kind of find going to have all the answers to the universe. Because if you think about it, even quantum physics and all of that, that's a form of spirituality, right? Like, it's more, and it's because I don't think it's evidence-based. I don't think it's always evidence-based, but it is a way of thinking and adapting, and of talking about the field. So you talk about the field, we talk about source, we talk about the ether, right? So we have a lot of the same terms, just describe it a little bit different. So I think, too, if we're going to that evidence-based kind of back to that question, is there is a lot of evidence. It's just whether you're willing to see it and then accept it as your truth, right? Because somebody can see something can be very truthful, and then somebody can just totally deny that truth because it doesn't resonate as their truth, right? Yeah.
So many different ways of knowing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many things are true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Stefanie, this has been wonderful. Thank you. I love it when we get into like this woo-woo, but like scientific. I love expanding my mind and getting different points of view. excellent. I love it. So thank you so much for being part of this. I'm so happy you're here. I will post this as soon as we're done on Instagram, and then probably a day or two later, it'll be on my YouTube channel. So don't miss it out there. If you missed it here, watch it again. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or Stefanie, and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So once again, thank you so much, Stefanie, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Maria. It's been such a joy, and you are a wonderful host.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. Lots of love.